Let's start this review. Mutation. It is the key to our evolution. It has enabled us to evolve from a single... Okay, no, I won't do the full X-Men intro. Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Star Trek, as we review every single episode of Star Trek. Unfortunately, that has brought us to Season 5, Episode 21, The Perfect Mate, as selected by none other than one Automaton 2000 to my right here on the screen. Otto, why did you pick The Perfect Mate? What was your inspiration for having this as your draft pick, which we picked? Yes, yes, Dan, up there, as your draft pick for this session.
So I always remember that the scene, the final scene with him and Beverly in quarters, where he says, and we guffawed over the line, but he says in the smallest possible voice, "May I take off the uniform for a moment?" And he lays himself bare to her. And I remember that scene as being awesome. So I drafted it somewhere in the middle rounds. And then I went back and watched it. And I'm like, this is even better than that. And I watched it again. I'm like, here's something new that I love more. And I kept watching it over and over and over. And I kept finding new things. And if I wanted to show someone said, okay, how good an actor is Patrick Stewart? I would probably show them this episode. This is not the mission statement for Star Trek. It's not the best first contact scene. It's not the most intelligent script out there, but he's acting his ass off, and they take him to the very tipping point, the very brink. Is he going to crack? Is he going to give up what he spent his life defending? And I think he does crack, and funnily enough, she pulls him back when he says, you can't go through with this. And like, he's about to jump in the camper van and run away and leave the rest of the wedding party standing there while those two go off on an adventure. But they don't do it. They pull it back. So his acting is off the charts in this episode.
Okay. He does so much with the blank space in between lines. He knows exactly how long and when to pause for effect. It's the classically trained actor just really taking an important script and bringing it home.
This is like peak Patrick Stewart's Picard, really. And these few seasons, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 as well. You know, this is like the era that kind of he defined himself as this kind of actor. You know, we've all sort of shit on Patrick Stewart for like the Picard seasons being like, yeah, you're a bit old, and you know, you've kind of like, yeah, you've still kind of got a little bit, but it's not. These are the reasons it's not the same as episodes like this. This was directed by one Cliff Bowl. We remarked on a couple of odd angles and tracking shots that were all very good, to be fair. There was different shots of the Enterprise in this episode, transport rooms scenes, at Dutch angle, different scenes, things like that. It was done by Cliff Bowl. He's also done The Best of Both Worlds, Unification, Ensigns of Command, and Tuvix, which is, you know, fine. A very popular episode. But yeah, he's definitely got his own directorial style that I kind of like, that I never really noticed until I kind of was looking out for it this episode. So, some interesting writing credits on this one. This was written by Rene Echevarria, who also did... This is a two-writer team. So, Rene Echevarria, apologies if I'm not saying the name correctly, who did The Offspring, who did Iborg. Echevarria, thank you. The Offspring, Iborg, Dark Page, Rejoined, Children of Time, like very powerful kind of episode. And also by someone called Gary Piconte. Now, Gary Piconte is a pseudonym. Gary Piconte is a pseudonym for Michael Pillar's friend Ruben Leader, who apparently disliked the rewrite so much he actually asked, can I not be associated with this? This is the only time that a writer in the entire of TNG has actually requested a pseudonym during Michael Pillar's time in The Next Generation.
I was going to say, there's got to be something in season 1 or 2 that had like the
very probably. But Gary Piconte or Ruben Leader has also known to have written episodes of Magnum PI and 66 episodes of a show called Flipper, which is apparently about a citizen.
It comes back around to dolphins, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does come back down to dolphins. Yeah, Dr. Keith Ricks returns to Florida to lead a team of scientists studying dolphins, and we do get the first Citizen Ops reference in this episode, so it comes around full circle. Okay. Little did we know.
Nobody remembers Flipper?
I don't remember Flipper. I don't think I ever watched.
They call him Flipper, faster than lightning. No one you see. Anyways. So we got a Flipper reference.
No,
We've got
please.
a
Please,
Buck
Dan,
Rogers
continue.
reference. Is faster than he, and Flipper lives in a world full of wonder, lying down under the sea. There you go, guys.
Wow. The only kind of dolphin-related sci-fi thing I remember
TV is so weird.
The only thing I remember is Sequest DSV that had that dolphin with the translator chip implanted in it, so it could talk English. And anyway, we're getting off topic. Stars, Dan, what did you think about this episode overall?
Stars, you go. Yep.
So, I do appreciate this episode for not turning away from the uncomfy nature of this trope. Because I almost want to say it gets to, like, it takes the cake and eats it as well, because it simultaneously does, like, a TOS style trope of, this is the ultimate woman who can be anything that you wish, who will conform around what you want in a woman, who will be the literal perfect mate. But whereas TOS, I think, would have like softballed it if they had even addressed the uncomfy nature of it at all, this literally has Beverly completely just, here is what is wrong with this by 1990 standards, by 2360 standards, and we are aware of what is wrong with this conceit and what it says about agency. But it also kind of doesn't stop itself from being a very romantic and very tragic episode, even with that uncomfiness intertwined with it. And it's one of those instances where, like, I've talked with Otto in the past about what's the Outcast, I think it is, the TNG non-binary episode, and how I'm not a massive fan of it. Otto it has elucidated some of the better parts of it, and it's one of those things where, like, I probably need to give it a proper rewatch. But whereas that made me, like, uncomfy in a way that I wasn't sure that the episode wanted me to, this made me feel uncomfy in a way that I'm like, no, the episode wants me to feel like this, and then is slowly taking me. It really puts you into Picard's mindset, and you follow through his emotional journey. Like, his emotional through line here is so perfectly sketched out, not just by the script but also by Patrick Stewart, and it takes it all the way to the edge, and I feel like it never completely it never strays into the room of, like, being gauche or, like, being genuinely just, like, uncomfortable. Like, it nudges up against it, but it's always just very tastefully done and with a lot of subtlety and nuance to it, which I really, really appreciate.
I think this episode, we can all agree, answers the question that the episode we previously reviewed, Sarek, asks: what if Mark Lenard was 25 years old and gorgeous?
I also ask myself
Come on,
that,
I've seen The Balance of Terror. We've all been there.
Okay. All right.
So I will say, sorry to cut you off, Dan. I picked this one because you picked Sarek, and then Stars because you picked Counterpoint, and there are similarities. There's things to compare in both. Please continue.
Yeah, and it's not uncommon that Picard has to take over for a fallen ambassador. It's one of the more common tropes to get him involved directly in a story that he would otherwise be bound by the Prime Directive not to intervene with. But in this case, it's another gobsmacking episode where, upon rewatch, I realized I completely missed the point as a kid. As a kid, I was like,
Me too.
Yeah, so here's this woman that's throwing herself at everybody, and who wouldn't want her? And it seems very, very plain on the surface. But then you throw in the scenes with Beverly, and you realize that this episode is about a mature adult relationship versus a nascent youthful relationship, and it's really interesting how they used science fiction to draw Picard into this plot, because if it were anybody else, he would be able to resist, I think. And here we've got a science fiction way to bring him in and show that he does have some failings to him, which makes him much more interesting. And that he also still trusts and relies on his relationship with Beverly, which we don't get a whole lot of in the entirety of TNG. And Picard rewrites a lot of that later on, and we get a little more involvement. But it was really, and this is something I'd completely forgotten, was that he had that closeness, that intimacy with Beverly without being with her. And that's ultimately what helps him to, despite the little transgression, the little wavering at the end, what helps him to successfully complete his mission. So, Fantastic.
Yeah, it's one of those interesting things that these scenes with Beverly, because she's not only the impetus for him to get properly involved and become entangled in Kamala, she's also the rock that I think kind of allows him to pull back in the end.
Yes.
Because she has that moment where she says, I wish I knew what I could say to help. And then Picard goes in for the rarest of things, like rarest almost than anything else, is to actually ask for touch. Like, if you think of, especially Picard in season 1 and 2, but even throughout the rest of the series, even in the movies, even in Picard, he is very touch resistant. He does not like to be outwardly hugged. He always kind of clams up whenever Loaxana touches him. And even with people that he likes, that he respects and loves, like the rest of the bridge crew or family, he does not get physical. He does not initiate touch all that often. So the fact that he just reaches out for Beverly, and it reminds me of that bit in the motion picture, like the best scene of it is this simple feeling, that simple comfort. That's
I knew you would reference that. It is
because
a good
it's
parallel.
the best part of the entire movie, and it kind of gets at what is important about being human is that simple feeling, that simple comfort. And it's like, I really do adore Gage McFadden and Patrick Stewart's chemistry together, because you absolutely buy them both as best friends, but also as potential romantic partners, and that adds another aspect to it, where you're very aware by this point in TNG's run that there are feelings there. There's so much history entangled in there, but they're both professionals who don't usually allow that to get in the way of them being really, really good at their jobs and really, really good at their friends, at their friendship rather. And you see that here, where it's like, there's no jealousy from Beverly or anything like that. There's no thought of this is the relationship I could have had. It's all very much, no, you're a friend in need. I need you to be, you're my medical officer, you're my captain. And they just perfectly work off of each other, but they still allow themselves to be intimate and trust each other when they need to. It's a really, like you say, it's only 2-3 scenes, but they are integral and they're really well done.
So I want to hear Idol's thoughts, and then I also want to hear Otto's thoughts on why Idol's completely wrong.
No. Believe it or not, I may be quite pointed. Jesus Christ. God, I'm glad I have such a good reputation. No.
By the way,
okay.
how many lines are in this episode?
I'm going to get to that. I'll get to that. Mislaced. No. So the thing that was going through my head this entire episode, because I mentioned this to Auto pre-stream. I've read the Three Body Problem series, which is a vast sci-fi series. Starts quite simple on Earth, goes basically into realms unknown, and goes a bit mad. But there is a big section of the second book where someone has unlimited access to money, all the money in the world that they want, and they say I've had this dream of this woman that I want. And they say, right, say to this person, here's what she looks like, here's how she acts, here's how she behaves, here's the person I want to have with me. And he sends her out, and they find this woman, and he marries her, they have child, and all this, and it's all happy. And then this is on the scope of the rest of the plot. But there's such a devoted amount of time to that storyline that I kind of think, hang on, is this the writer kind of self-inserting here? And I'm not going to say that here for a couple of reasons, because it does feel like that at first. Kamala is the perfect woman, isn't she? She really is. She can read your mind. She can react to your jokes. She pretty much interacts with anyone that she wants. That it almost feels just wow, what if I could just write to Rene Echevarria and Ruben Leader just written what if this was just the woman of our dreams, and I'm just going to put her in this story and make her act. The one thing that stops that becoming too pervasive is Picard, for a good reason. The fact that his counterbalance to that storyline, this isn't, if you would just have this woman run around the ship, just being sultry and elusive, and not elusive, sorry, the opposite of elusive, and you've got a TOS plot there, haven't you? And all the men falling in love and turning around and going, whoop, and you get the whoop 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 sound effect and all that. But this isn't played like that. This is played a lot more subtly in places. It is a little bit more extroverted, especially in the scenes in 10 Forward. But I think when she's playing with Picard, and especially when it gets nearer the end of the episode, and you realise, oh wait, she's not my perfect mate, she's his, because she was the first one that he saw, and so she's telepathically aligned to him, and you get the stories about again, like the conversation with Beverly when she says like, well, she's forced into it, but then you get Kamala's side of it where she goes, yeah, I know I'm forced into it, but I've accepted it. And I am an awkward balance between like, okay, she's so much of a character, and she's written, and credit to Famke Jansson for acting the shit out of this character and making me go like, oh wow, not only is she incredibly attractive, she's also selling me on it. She's also like an incredible actress that she can convince me that what she's saying actually is quite reasonable when in reality it really isn't. So I am half on like, oh, is this the writer's self-insert, but also it kind of does work in the terms of I trying to work out what kind of point this is trying to prove, because obviously there are conversations about arranged marriage and things like that, you know, and especially political arranged marriages are very synonymous in human history from times gone out, but there are rarely occasions where synonymous where there's been an arranged marriage where the female part of it is actually willing to go along with it and actually understands why she is supposed to go along with it. So this is a very unique episode in terms of that. It kind of skirts around the misogyny aspects of it by being almost self-aware of it to the point of where she's almost stepping out of the screen to tell us why she's doing this. Also, why am I wrong?
The only thing that I disagree with from what you said is that it skirts the misogyny. It doesn't. It addresses it. Like Sarah said, I've seen people say this is a misogynistic episode. No,
that's why I say skirts. It kind of sits that
about misogyny.
Yeah,
and that's the difference. I got so much to say about everything the three of you have already said. Let me start with my one memory alpha poll of the episode. Michael Pillar, in a memo to writer Renee Echeverria, said Kamala must be fully rounded, bright, engaging, with a great personality, and the audience should say, well, I see the problem for Picard. If there's no magnetic electricity between those two, then it doesn't happen for me as a man watching her, and the audience will not accept for 1 second that Picard would even give her a second thought. So she pushes a little bit, and I'll talk in a little bit why she pushes. But she pushes, and like you say, he is the good counterbalance. It's the sweet and salty, it's chocolate and peanut butter. And, you know, she says later, that's the very reason I'm with you tonight is because you're not pushing. You're not like the other men. God, I had so many thoughts. I got lost where I was.
Focus.
Let me back up to the breakfast. The Beverly scenes. I want to break these
Breakfast
down.
of Beverly's, yes.
Beverly. So unfortunately, the first one comes right after I'll be in Holodeck 4, which objectively no one can tell me is not hilarious.
No,
like,
that is so good.
We've all been waiting for that line.
Is that
for years? We've been waiting for that line.
Can we just say that that's one of the few masturbation jokes in Star Trek? I don't think there are many others.
Well, I think my modern Trek probably has a few.
Yeah, your Lurpa, he's got a bigger Lurpa than you. That was
okay.
We won't go there. But it was a classy masturbation joke, so we're going to allow it.
He even has that moment where he's outside the quarters and he's debating what he should do. He like wipes his mouth and goes, "Fuck it, I'm off duty."
Yeah.
I'm calling it a mental health crisis.
Mm-hmm. I'm sure he was setting up the Temple of Akadar in the holodeck, all right? He was helping with the mission.
He broke Holodecks 4, 5, and 6. They had to go to 7.
I can't even believe they have 7, by the way. That's a lot of holodecks for a ship.
It's a lot of crew.
All right.
1,000 people.
One's permanently occupied by Barclays, so you know that's a problem.
They've got Fairhaven set up in one of the holodecks 3 and 4.
They got the one for Moriarty just for Moriarty. Anyways, yeah.
See, the interesting thing about the Fairhaven one is that, like, it's a male person, and they're in love with Michael Sullivan's wife. So they've deleted Michael Sullivan from that version of Fairhaven and decided to upgrade his wife. So,
right,
it's a perfect mirror. You know, wheels with
upgrade
wheels.
the wife.
Circles and circles.
Anyway, sorry. No,
sorry.
All right. So the scenes with Beverly, damn it. The first scene, it's so good. It opens up, and for the first, 25 seconds, he can't look her in the eye. She's reading him the riot act. She doesn't say, how can Starfleet do this? How can Starfleet order us? She goes, how can you deliver her into a life of virtual prostitution? Quote, I'm surprised at you. She's directing this at him. He can't look at her. And then what he does I both love it and I hate it because we all know someone like this. He explodes. He gets loud. He gets sarcastic. Oh, let's just throw the prime directive to the wind. He doesn't really address the points. He's saying, well, my hands are tied. And the thing is, you get both sides of it. Like if you're sitting in there and she's yelling, if you're sitting in that room, she's yelling at him, you'd be like, yeah, Captain, how dare you do that? And then he goes, well, it's the prime director. And you'd be like, yeah, Beverly, don't be too hard on him. Like you see both sides of it. But he gets quiet at the end because he knows the entire time she's right. And she doesn't, it even writes in the script that she doesn't, like she gives up mid-sentence, he's talking, and then she picks right back up where she was. She keeps, because she knows she's right. We get then to the end, the final scene with them. They only have the three. And he starts out small and quiet. And she goes, you're quiet. He goes, I'm sorry. But then he doesn't stop being quiet because he's just in that kind of mood. It's raining outside in space. And he's feeling awful.
Sounds like a David Bowie song. It's raining in space.
And so he says, do you mind if I take off the uniform for a moment, in the smallest voice you've ever heard Jean-Luc Picard use? And he starts to open up to her. He says, it's all your fault. And then he downcasts his eyes and it flips back to their first scene. He says, you insist that I look into it. He's staring down. It's a great little connection. But what I love actually about that scene, I love a lot about that scene. She says, and there's nothing, you're saying there's nothing you can do about it? He says it's not that simple. He looks incredibly pained. This guy's in the ditch right now. He's feeling terrible about everything, about him, about her, about the mission. But one of the things I love is Bev doesn't get down in the mud and roll around with him. She states she knows in her heart that this is it's not trafficking, it's arranged marriage. There is a difference. They're both maybe wrong in different ways. But she doesn't get maudlin with him. She is, like you said, she is a rock. But she knows she's right, and she knows that he'll come around to this in the end, even if it takes a long time to stop feeling the hurt. And they're just so good together. And I think that first scene with them is the linchpin, because yes, they talk about it. He tells Kamala, it's hard for us to accept that someone can live only to be what other people want them to be. And they do talk about it. But this is the scene that smacks you between the eyes about it and tells the audience, look, we know you have a problem with this. You should have a problem with this. You should be uncomfortable with it. And by the end, when everybody's a loser, you should be feeling rotten about it. And then you should go and look in the real world at arranged marriages, at that kind of thing, and be like, well, how wrong is it? What can I do to address it? That's what Star Trek does, you know? If you think about that episode with David Ogden, Steers Half a Life, where they kill everyone once they reach 65, is Star Trek being ageist? No, they're telling you this society is ageist, and this is why it's a problem. And then after that episode, you're supposed to feel really crappy about it, and go look at that in the real world in the mirrors there. So I've talked for long enough about this. Those two scenes are like powerhouse scenes for me.
Yeah. This is a.
It also really
no stars, please.
Yeah, I also think it's like, as someone who's been in a relationship for about 13 years now, there is something about like the simplicity of I like who I am, like of Kamala saying I like who I am when I'm around you, because that's ultimately like you can dress what love is up in so many different ways. You can express it in a million different like sonnets or whatever. But ultimately, you want to like the person that you are when you're around someone else. You want to laugh, you want to be happy, you want to feel intelligent and buoyed, and you want to feel like they respect you, and they will listen to anything you'll say, and they won't judge you. Like, that's ultimately kind of what anyone like. You want to be challenged, but you don't want to be demeaned. You want the perfect mate. You want the perfect counterbalance. And it does such a good job of setting Kamala up as this, because she is a mirror. And it's so interesting of what everyone's mirror looks like. Because I think that like no one's gets quite as much focus as Picard's, obviously. I think Riker's is interesting, and she's so much more like outgoing and vivacious and sexually not like aggressive, but just like maybe adventurous, I guess the word is.
Which God forbid a woman ever be like that.
Well, yeah. I just didn't want to use the word sexually aggressive because I don't think that's a good way to characterize either Kamala in that scene or Riker in general. And with Picard, she's so measured and intelligent and calm.
But she is the reflection, though, isn't she? That was expressed in the 10
Yes.
forward scene. So she will always be the mirror to the desire. But I think the implication was with Picard, because he was the first that she saw, that she bonded with him the most. So I think, yeah. Sorry, carry on. I didn't mean to run in there, but I just wanted to clarify.
No, absolutely. No, you're good. You're good. And it's just this thing of it kind of adds to the allegory that you've got the angle of, yes, being around Picard objectively makes her into a better person because she is reflecting someone who we know to be a great man. But the fact that it comes about because of this shitty circumstance and because of this awful arranged way that, and you can see so much that Ulrich of Volt just does not appreciate her.
Oh, that man's so into his
her.
spreadsheets. It's ridiculous. Who possibly could relate to him?
And it draws you into the personal tragedy of it, as well as like the macro tragedy of what this concept means in the real world. And it's just a good way of like the two layers of it just working in perfect concert. Because so often with like the sci-fi allegories of Star Trek, you can get like a bit of a conflict where one will accidentally demean the other and be like, well, that kind of goes against your point. But here they work in perfect symphony to make you feel shitty about this kind of situation. I really appreciated like the way that they layer that.
It kind of reminds me of a more nuanced version of the Gelfs from Red Dwarf, especially the Camilla episode, which is is it Camilla? Yeah, Camilla. Camille, yeah, that's the one. Where she, Kamala, yeah, kind of. Actually, I kind of wonder if that was in... Yeah, it could have been anyway. Anyway, this being comes aboard the ship and everyone sees is the perfect person that they've seen all along, but she relates to Crichton the most, and then he's like, no, I don't see you as an amorphous blob, and, they end up forming a genuine bond, and it is a very similar storyline. I think they came out around the same time. I'm pretty sure Camille may have been a bit later, so that could have been...
I think it might have been around about contemporaneous, if not a year before, actually.
Yeah, they're very close in terms of timeline, but it is... I still...
Who stole from who?
Honestly, it's... But then it is a bit of a Greek myth, isn't it? It is the Helen of Troy. It is because who was also an arranged marriage. It is the sirens of, your men's desires, and because we are going to enter the realm of men writing women. We really should have had a woman on for this review, because we kind of cannot be perspective. I think the person that could most be closer to have the right perspective is Stars for your sexual orientation, but sadly we're not there yet. But we'll do our best, because I like to pride myself in being
because of his childbearing hips.
Had me going to the gym, to be fair.
You got to work on it. But I pride myself on, I've been watching a lot of like 2000s WWE, and every time they have any kind of women's match, it's just like, oh no,
you pride yourself on that?
No, I do not. I pride myself on just going like, oh no, this is objectively wrong. Or I like to feel like I am sort of like stalwart for everyone having a choice, and women's rights being like a very good thing to have, and there shouldn't be any kind of... So when I see something like The Perfect Mate, and I kind of... that thing that just sticks in my brain is someone wrote Kamala. They still wrote her in this situation. This isn't something that happened in real life. This is something... Because real life is worse. This is someone who's written someone to be their desires, like the Three-Bodied Problem writer. But Dan, you look like you got something on the tip of your tongue.
Oh yeah, I've been collecting stray thoughts here. So the last thing you mentioned was, or somebody wrote this, but that's when Star Trek's at its best, when it's when sci-fi in general is at its best, when it acts as a lens through which you can see something that's a real life issue. And so this is where we take the sensibilities of people that we know and trust, the crew of the Enterprise, and apply them to this situation, which objectively, if us being in our ivory tower here in America, we're looking at the same situation, we'd be very quick to judge. But this episode puts a lot of color into the issue, and I appreciate it for that. Stars, you mentioned something about the line, I guess, I like myself when I'm with you, right? So, and how that can be a healthy thing in some relationships where you have people that are fairly close together and they can find that happy medium and just be comfortable. But I think it comes across in this episode as, again, just juvenile, where she is repeatedly being identified as being in the late stage of what we call puberty. And so now she's at the point where she's so reflective of the people that she's with that she's giving up her own identity. And part of that is interesting to her because she doesn't know who she is. She's always been told who she is. So that's kind of a tragic aspect of Kamala in the episode where, she just doesn't have an identity of her own, but she's found in Picard this identity that she can find some self-respect through the process. And I think she recognizes that she's not old enough to be able to be her own person yet. 25 in our culture, I think, would certainly be around the time when people would find themselves. But for her, she's not ready yet. These races live to 200 years old, we found. So, this is a very young juvenile in terms of the racial
I think
lifespan.
That's kind of my bugbear with the Kamala character. She is too self-aware. And I think it comes back to my kind of like feeling like she's self-aware of her own limitations. People that age aren't. It takes you a long time to learn about how your mental age, where it is.
Well,
she's
that's
very
part
mature.
of the thing is that she's gifted that self-awareness by someone who has worked really hard to get that self-awareness over a life of discipline and work.
Yeah.
And if you imagine what it's like, imagine if you could go back and give yourself at the age of 25 the self-awareness that you have now of your behavior, and imagine what that would do to yourself at that age. You'd go, it
would unravel the tapestry of my life, Stars.
Exactly. To be gifted self-awareness is a great and terrible thing for a reason.
I get that.
So
I'm still at some point. I feel like that has not been. I don't want to do a service because Kamala is an incredible character, and the way she's written it appeals to the male psyche in many ways because we want, especially someone like me who doesn't just want look hug woman. I just I want someone to be on like my wife is. We're on the same level. We have good discussions. We have a fair and open a fair relationship. But it makes me feel like, especially in the 90s, to have some woman like this presented to someone of most white-blooded men at that time goes like, wow, she is really the ultimate woman. And I can't help but think that the writing has made it. This is where I kind of can't separate the writing from the character. I feel like she's too good. It's almost like a Mary Sue, but not quite. That's my big bugbear. Anyway, sorry. I think this might be my big disagreement with everyone on this one, but okay.
So I have a question for everybody. When does the bonding happen?
When she comes out first time, as soon as she looks at him.
She looks at him and she's attracted to him, but she's still not quite done with her last stage of puberty yet. So, and that's clear because she's able to continue to start the bonding attempt with other members on the Enterprise, the civilians and the other crew. So she's still going through those final throes of trying to figure out who she is. But it doesn't. I don't think it happens that early. Otto, what do you think?
Are you asking to ask, or are you asking because you think you?
Well, I think I know what my idea is, but I would like to hear.
I know as well.
Thoughts. Yeah.
Well, tell us, because you've.
So my thought is, there are two moments of bonding in this episode, and both of them involve touch, and so Picard ultimately realizes his role is set, and he finds his confidence when he touches Beverly. And similarly, Kamala bonds with Picard when she finally relents and touches his head. The first physical contact that they make in the entire episode is just that one moment where she touches his head, and she realizes that his guard is down enough that she can finally make that contact with him.
I think so too. It's again, if you're big Trek Time fans, first of all, I apologize, but we reviewed A Stop at Willoughby, and in that episode, there's 3 stops, and they each grow in intensity, and they each lead somewhere. I feel like it's the same thing with here. He visits her in quarters 3 times, and I'll get back to that in a second. This is a roundabout way, but I'll try to tie it all together. People have a problem with the Ferengi in this episode, and Stars, you said you talked about gauche moments. The Ferengi are gauche, and the miners are gauche. And they're meant to be. There are these expectations placed on her. The Ferengi think they can buy her. The miners think they can flirt with her to get her to spend an evening with them. Ambassador Briam expects her to follow his wishes, stay in her room for the good of her people. Ulrich takes her for granted. They all have different expectations of her. Picard has none. I don't want to use you as other men use you. And she says, you can't. You're not like other men. That's why I'm with you tonight. And that's the second scene. That's when I think they bond. She tells him, you're different from everyone else. And she chooses him consciously or subconsciously. Then the touch happens. But yeah, that first one, he goes to check on her. It gets a little bit flirty. He has enough self-awareness to get out. The second one, they get much closer. That's when the decision's made. The third one, it's like fucking death when he walks in, and he's a dead man walking. And so I like that 1, 2, 3 structure that we see in a lot of literature and works. But to give a roundabout answer to your question, I agree. That's where it happens. That scene.
Yeah, my answer was basically just going to be I didn't have a specific moment in mind, although I think you're probably right that the touch is kind of where it happens. I was going to say at some point before they have the conversation where she explains that now I understand the concept of duty, at which point you're like,
the first duty to...
Yes. She's become a fully formed individual at exactly the wrong time, because now she's like doomed to a
That's
life
a metaphor for life, really, isn't it?
Of how fucked her situation is, which is like that's the worst way it could possibly go. And I think that's because I was thinking about it when we were watching the episode. I was like, okay, so we see the marriage, and then you don't see the aftermath. It just cuts immediately to Picard and Briam, and I think that's very, very intentional, because Picard not only has to try and remove himself emotionally as fast and as immediately and as like steadfast. He has to put a wall down as quickly as he can, but it's also a case of like it would be too tragic to see a mirror image of Picard's intelligence and independence and intelligence and self-awareness shackled to this inferior, boring, unlikable man.
So I said I was going to ask you, Stars. I'm going to ask you here. Ulrich of Vald.
Yes.
Now, they wrote in the script to make him as bland, or boring. They've repeated the word 3 times, whatever it was. Boring as possible. You know, probably to make him in relief of Picard the much worse choice, so that you feel much worse when she has to do this. Is this gay-coded? He says, obviously, that he has no desire with her. He cares more about the trade agreements. He has sort of a stereotypical, the way he talks, the way he holds himself.
Probably more asexual.
The 90s, pretty stereotypical.
That's what I said, based on just my recollection before watching the movie, and before watching the episode. And I will tell you actually what he reminds me of way more than being gay-coded. He reminds me, maybe it's the red hair, maybe it's the makeup, maybe it's just the actor, of the 1984 Dune version of the Harkonnens.
Yes.
Well, especially of like the Baron, and like of just that sort of like kind of man-childy, a little bit too pale, the bright red shock of hair, the removedness, the unlikability. It reminds me way more of the Harkonnens from the David Lynch Dune, rather
Wasn't
than
the name of the singer from Simply Red? Is that Mick Hucknall?
I don't know. You
Mick
do
Hucknall of
more
Star
of a
Trek.
for you. And I don't think he comes across specifically as gay-coded to me. Although I did mention to you that what was it I said? Because I'm so much more articulate when I'm in DMs with you.
It was articulate. Yeah, please pull that up.
Would you like Patrick Stewart to read it to you?
Yeah, I said it might not even be a conscious choice if the gay coding is there. Homosexual men can sometimes be seen as failed men. And if he's meant to be someone that we dislike, they might have drawn on certain unconscious signifiers in order to communicate that failure as a man and failure as a mate. Because if you think about it, there is no greater failure as a heterosexual mate than to be gay.
The funny thing is, I just finished watching Beetlejuice. One of the characters in that, Ortho, is a very flamboyant, who in any other sort of show would be like, oh, he's the gay character, but he has a wife, and he constantly refers to the fact that she attempted suicide several times, and that they're not in a happy marriage. So actually, what you've said there is applicable to a lot of other things as well.
Yeah, it's an interesting conversation in there. But sorry, you go, Dan.
I think if anything, the ambassador is the gay-coded character in this episode, and they write it off at the end of his just being old, so they have a cute little moment between him and Picard. But
yeah, that's kind of nice.
I assume throughout the entire episode that he was either a eunuch or he was, his proclivities laid elsewhere.
Right.
But I think that you can tell that Ulrich of Volt is not just with the anticipation in the wedding scene when he's coming down off of his pedestal and stepping down. He doesn't look at the stairs on any step. He does the entire thing looking at the door, laser focus, waiting to see what his wife will look like. So I think that that solidified it for me. So let's one more thing before we get onto the other ratings and best and worst. Let's talk a little bit about destiny here. So something that the Star Wars really uses kind of hand wavy. This is your destiny. This is the path that you're on. They don't bother really developing a whole lot of characters. It's just kind of a fun little romp, especially in the first trilogy. But in this episode, they skirt around the word very frequently, especially when Kamala's talking about her role in the peace talks. But I think that in the Star Trek universe, destiny does not exist. It's a universe of free will, and so that's where this episode really transcends that Kamala's choice to imprint on Picard was not just based out of him playing hard to get or it being a unique challenge or something refreshing to her. I think it's because she understood that she would have difficulty completing this mission despite everything that she's been told, and she tips her hand a few times in her dialogue. And when she finally finds Picard, she finds somebody with the resolve that he will complete the mission no matter what, and she needs that from him. So I think her decision to imprint on him is more than just a base desire. It's something that she sees as the means to complete her mission. It's not just her destiny. She needs help, and he's the one to help her in a very roundabout science fiction way.
No, I could definitely see that. Yeah. There you go, Water.
That third scene in Quarters, which I have even a lot more to say about, we get that line from her, which Stars mentioned, from bonding with you, I learned the meaning, the value of duty. And yes. I like that it takes a sci-fi way, but it's saying, you become better when you find the right person. You take the best parts of them and you grow in certain ways that you couldn't do either by yourself or with other people. And it's such a beautiful message that, it's just part of the reason you love sci-fi is like, oh, well, of course they wrote her to have all these pheromones and stuff. And it's like, well, you're missing the point because they're using it for a lot of other reasons other than just sex. And just another mention sex twice. And and the word just flows so naturally out of her mouth. It doesn't, they never land on that word because it's not what it's about. It's part of who she is, part of what they taught her, part of her, quote, destiny. And I just, as an aside, I like the way that she's a 25-year-old with her second acting credit in this episode. And there's few, she stunts on a few lines, but it's actually really impressive what she pulls off here.
Like I said previously, Brian Fuller was a Star Trek fan, so I can imagine he may have seen this and gone like, I need a Jean Grey. there is one.
Are you saying Brian Fuller when you mean to say Brian Singer?
Brian Singer. Who's Brian? Oh, Brian. No, Brian Fuller was the Discovery guy. Yeah, I meant Brian Singer, yes.
Yes.
Who appeared in Star Trek Nemesis.
Yes. See, I was going to sort of come back to that point of like her consciously taking parts from Picard that she appreciates. And it does sort of add the aspect of, because by this point in season 5, I don't know, is this post-Tapestry?
You must be. It's late season 5, it's 21. Tapestry is...
I feel like it is post-Tapestry.
I think Tapestry seasons. No, Tapestry season 6. Season 6, episode 15, so pre-Tapestry.
Okay, yeah. So I feel like it isn't. I feel like by this point you would still have a wider context to Picard's character to know that he does have alternate paths that he could have taken. There are things that he regrets. Like he makes references to that in not in Final Mission, but in Samaritan Snare, like the shuttlecraft episode with Wesley. And you also have like family where he talks about the Atlantis project, and there's so many options open to him. And he has regrets about the lives he's not lived, the paths not taken. But the resolve that he's built up and the discipline he's built up over the years allow him to make a peace with that. And while I talked earlier about like the tragedy of Kamala having to live as this Picard mirror with a man who does not appreciate her, there is also a bit of solace in the fact that if she has to live that life, she lives it with some of the strength that Picard has within herself. Like you say, taking some of the best parts of him to strengthen herself and give her that resolve. So like that kind of makes it a little bit less of a bittersweet of an ending, although it is still a hard.
You've said that actually a Shakespearean tragedy is kind of a Shakespearean tragedy in itself, and it feels like something that the woman you cannot have, or like the romance that is split between. It is almost Romeo and Juliet-esque in terms of themes. Any more? Also, I know you've got more. Go on.
I got more. I promise we talk about the tearing down of Picard. I'll try to rapid fire this because we are getting on a little bit.
That's fine.
That final scene in Quarters, the third act, if you will, that we haven't talked quite as much about. First of all, great line by her. Who I am today, I will be forever. I think we've all had moments, pivotal moments in our life where, like, no matter what happens, I know this is truth. I know this will be right in the future. I know I'll always do this. We'll always have this. And I just liked her surety there. Data calls in on the call. Not now, Data. He's so irritated, which I love because he's so lost in the moment. But he says, Ambassador Ulrich is waiting for you in Holodeck 7. They show Picard, and then they show Kamala for longer than average, like 4 seconds held on her. And they're thinking, are we really going to do this? Can we back out yet? No, they know they can't. Except Picard doesn't know that. And he's still holding out hope. He goes, you can't go through with the ceremony. And when he says this, he's not thinking about the peace treaty. He's thinking about her happiness first, his happiness second, and then way down there is the peace treaty, I think. And that's some of the most selfish we'll ever see Jean-Luc Picard. When they're in his ready room, you're a day away from an arranged marriage. Why would he want me to visit you? And he's thinking she's trying to seduce him. She says, I said a visit. Don't make love to me. And he's a little bit embarrassed. He casts his eyes down. Later in that scene, he asks her, why are you doing this? There can only be one reason. Part of you wants me to do this. Awesome line. He's starting to realize, okay, maybe I'm not as unflappable as I thought I was. We talked about the Beverly scenes when she's railing on him. How can you do this? And then again, when he's just embarrassed and destroyed in their final scene together. And then there's two things that they made it into the script. They didn't make it into the TV show. When he's talking to Bev at the end, he says, I can't help but think how she'll change to be with him, how she'll accommodate him. And then there's the line, and I don't like it. And they cut that, I don't know, for whatever reason, but that's in there. There was also several alternate endings, one of which he has a reverie and stands up during the wedding and says, no, she's mine, you can't have her. And they fuck off together. And then he wakes up and realizes, oh no, that's all in my mind. And they didn't do that either. But, and I think I like both choices. Maybe they could have done that, and I don't like it line, because that is, they're just tearing him down.
Okay.
They're showing that he's selfish, he's vulnerable, he's making the wrong decision, not only in his personal life, but now as a captain with Beverly, reminding him, and it's just like the hits keep on coming, to borrow a phrase. And I like that they just, it's not such an obvious a chain of command destroying of this man, but at least at the end of that, he never broke. He said 4 lights right up to the very end, even if he didn't believe it. But in this one, he does. He wavers. He says, you can't go through with it. And she's the one that has to say, no, I have to go through with it. So I just like the way that they systematically demolish Jean-Luc Picard in this episode.
This is the deconstruction. Okay, let's talk about the alternate endings. I have been destroying my sleep cycle for trying to find these fucking alternate endings. So on the season 5 Blu-ray of The Next Generation, on one specific, there is actually some of those have been filmed and released. I have been trying to find these without physically buying the Blu-ray because that I'm not going to spend 70 quid for a 30-second alternate fucking scene. But there are actually several alternate endings that were filmed. The one that Otto said about Jean-Luc having the dream was one of the ideas that apparently Patrick Stewart liked, but Michael Piller overruled Rick Berman, which was... No,
other way around. Piller liked it, Berman overruled.
Oh, over it. Yes, you're right, correct. So that's one of the extras. There were 2 other considered but not filmed. One of these had Kamala interrupting the ceremony to decline both Alric and Picard. Pillar says he remembered. She says through Picard's influence, she had been enlightened and is off in search of adventure, leaving both men standing there. I was overruled. But I think those who overruled me would say that her leaving was not justified by anything else in the script. But I would argue with that. There were
blows up the peace conference. Yeah, that's no good.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But there was no record of the other alternate ending. But yeah, there was. Rick Berman recalled there were a number of heated discussions about the choice of endings, and he said none of us will ever know which of the four would have been best. But I kind of think that the one they picked. I think the one they picked is the best.
I think they picked the right one. Yeah.
They did. Can I interrupt this for a throwback segment? Let's do.
Well, if that's the best they could do, this should last about 5 minutes.
5 minutes. We will retrace our steps and figure out what's going on.
You've got 5 minutes. Do it.
Gentlemen, if you had 5 minutes, what would you do with Command? No, that's not my segment at all. No, if last 5 minutes of this episode, how would you change it? What would you do at that altar scene, or what would you do in the deconstruction of Jean-Luc Picard? I appreciate I have not pre-warned you on this, but I wonder if any of you guys would like to go first. I actually don't have anything prepared. I just decided this on a whim. Stars, you
can I add 5 minutes, or do I have to change the last 5?
Do you know what? I'll let you add.
You can
add or change. Your choice.
If I'll try and think about what I would change if I had to change. But in terms of adding, I would add one last scene with Beverly. I think that, or you know what? Yeah, I'll say I would change the scene with Briam to come after a scene with Beverly, where they just have a conversation and lay it all out. I don't think I would need to make it as explicit. I think that keeping the episode's subtlety is important, and I don't necessarily want to change the kind of the 3-act structure that we've almost got going. But I feel like if you don't regard the medical scene as part of the 3, then this makes Beverly's scene a proper 3. And you almost get like a reflection of the chain of command. You know, I actually believed I could see 4 lights, type thing. And maybe a hint as to just like how close he came. I mean, you can see it on his face, but I feel like getting to reveal that to Beverly would give him some degree of solace to know that he wasn't alone in feeling that. And then maybe a bit more of a conversation with Briam. Like, if I was writing this now, I feel like I would make it explicit, like I usually say, like Dan, of his proclivities lie elsewhere, because he does. Like you asked me, does Ulrich have gay coding to him? And I don't think he does, but Briam kind of has a little bit of a theater gay kind of coding, like a little bit of the Ian McKellen to him. So if you wanted to go down that route, I feel like you could do that. But yeah, more of Briam, more of Beverly. I feel like if you could like work a way of not repeating what's gone before, but kind of unfurling more of Picard's pain into that final scene. I wouldn't change what the final scene is, but I feel like that would probably be my choice. Yeah. So, here you go, guys.
All right, I'll go, because it's like you said, you have to preserve the subtlety. He hands her off in this fabulous dress. They zoom in on him, and he's looking like he wants to be anywhere else. He decides to go somewhere else. He backs out, turns around, walks out the door. The big holodeck doors close, and he just leans against the wall. They'll do a close-in on him, and he's just get a real good close-up of Patrick, because this is his acting reel, and he's fucking smashing it. Just get a close-up of him absolutely destroyed. If you want to go one tier, that's
doing the long sobbing at the end on the bed.
No, not sobbing. He wouldn't let that much out. But you can just tell the man's destroyed, and he couldn't stand being in that room for one more minute, I think, is the point.
Maybe like a thump at the wall, maybe, and just like in sheer frustration. I think I would allow that. I don't think a tear would be appropriate, but I can see where you're going with it.
Dan?
I can't tell you how to improve this episode, because I don't think you can, but I can tell you how to end it as a new Trek episode. In the last 5 minutes,
my ears, Dan.
The last 5 minutes of the Ferengi come back and bust in on the ceremony.
You stole my bit. I was going to do that.
And they start to shoot and shoot. And we're gonna, if we can't have her, nobody will have her. And
the energy wins.
Kamala dies. Everybody's sad, but in her death, both of the races join forces against a common enemy, and they still find peace in defeating the Ferengi Empire.
I was
so that's my
literally
new
gonna
trick.
say-
Explosions and gunfire ending. So
I was gonna have that the Ulrich was gonna hit a device on his chest, like doors closed. It's just him and Kamali hits a little device on his arm, and it is Max Grodenchek underneath as the Ferengi, and he's like, we succeeded, we got the mate.
Oh, and one more thing, Orca-Vault full-on mouth kisses Chancellor Briam, and then Chancellor Briam says, "Yum yum."
What are we on? Some kind of Star Trek?
I'm not detecting any leak.
You know what's happened? You know what's happened is that we've had all this really measured conversation about like the
anymore.
themes and the stuff.
Oh, you broke the seal
now.
now.
We did it all out. We just had to let it explode out.
Zoomies. We got it. Yeah, we got it.
All right, fuck it,
Zoomies.
gentlemen.
Bread.
Be standing for the Cisco. It's time for bread. Gentlemen, what was your bread of the episode? I'm going to go first. My bread of the episode was seeing one Max Grodenchik as a Ferengi, not knowing that in the future he would play one Rom. Excuse me. And just the Ferengi in general this episode. But also on top of
much more substantial.
On top of that, my second bread relating to that, which is the actual bread all along, is going to be the fact that the Ferengi were a serious motivational part of this episode until Picard went, no, fuck it, shuttle, off, gone. And then they were just out of the episode forever. It was just a case the Ferengi have left on their shuttle, I couldn't be bothered to deal with them anymore.
See, what they don't show you is that Worf strapped a bomb vest to both of the Ferengi and said, if you come anywhere near the Enterprise, that will go off.
I've got to say, people hate the Ferengi, but they're used as plot. From minutes 9 to 46, they make one appearance. That's to knock Briam out so that Picard can take his place. And they also tip her out so she emerges early. They're only there to further the plot.
I felt like the tipping out was very farcical, though. Like, it was just like they were there to motivate.
That's the Ferengi.
Yeah, it was a little bit not quite in the same respects of the same episode, because especially with that kind of like, whoa, you know, he's perched up.
Hell of a
Thing is,
fall,
look, he's perched up.
fall.
He's on a barrel. He's on a box on top of a barrel just to get a fucking tricorder reading. He could have done that on the floor.
No.
I've seen people do stupider things at the Grand Canyon. So.
That's true. That's true. All right, Stars, what's your bread?
I'm going to go with a slightly more serious bread, and I'm going to go with the line, I like who I am with you. I like who I am with him. That hits me deep, and I think that it perfectly epitomizes everything that's good about this episode in terms of the tragedy of Kamala's situation, the tragedy of Picard's compatibility with her and who she is with him. As you mentioned, like the tragedy of real world women who are forced to become like who they are around other people, despite what they might have otherwise been. Just it kind of epitomizes everything about what this episode, I think, tries and succeeds to do. I think it absolutely succeeds in doing that.
Dan, what's your
as a bald man? I will say to the other like-minded individuals up there, you get you a woman that will touch your bald head with the same tenderness that
with
Kamala
the TNG
touches
theme
Picard.
song.
And
such tenderness.
and to the men out there, be willing to be vulnerable enough to be touched in that way.
Go on, Otto.
All right, my bread, it's going to be the reason why I drafted it. Now, I thought this episode was kind of just like junky, jokey, crass TNG with a great final scene. No, it's not. My memory was false. But that will remain my bread. And everything else is much higher, having rewatched it recently. Beverly May, take off the uniform for a moment. That's the smallest you've ever seen Jean-Luc Picard. And it's so nice. And the fact that, of course, that she holds the line. She doesn't get down there with him. She helps pull him out. That's what a best friend should do. So, bread.
Fantastic. Okay, let's do... do we need to do a best worst of this episode? Was there anything you can particularly say a worst moment of?
Look, I had to watch your kaleidoscope for 2.5 hours. We're doing a fucking best
fine.
The best advice I can give you is to just be yourself.
You're the worst thing that ever happened to Zek. You're the worst thing that ever happened to me.
Actually, that's the second best piece of advice.
In fact, you're the worst thing that ever happened to the entire Ferengi Alliance.
Oh.
No.
Just stop saying that.
Da-da! Okay, best and worst moments. Dan, go!
Best moment is the final scene with Beverly, where she is just every bit his Picard's friend and equal and confidant, and just shows what a real mature relationship actually looks like, and just how misguided this whole sci-fi conceit has really brought Picard out of his comfort zone. Worst moment, I think it has to be the Ferengi trying to bribe the ambassador. It's kind of I guess they were already paying the actors and they had the makeup on, so they brought him in for another scene, but it just seemed like kind of a throwaway moment. I don't really think I understood. Like it was funny, that's fine, but I don't really understand what
Bit of a time filler, yeah.
The guy was knocked unconscious going through a table, like the Dudleys would be
I mean, that's usually like the highlight of a match, yeah. I was gonna say.
yeah.
Stars.
Okay.
My best moment is going to be the first Beverly scene, because I appreciate it as a callback to all those instances in season 1, especially of TNG, where they try and make Beverly like the heart and moral center of the Enterprise. I'm specifically thinking of Symbiosis here, where she's ragging on Picard mercilessly about the Onarans and the Breccians.
Yeah,
and it comes across so much worse there, because it isn't really as earned. Whereas by this point, like they've actually matured as a writing staff, and like it comes across way more as a personal conversation that has deep philosophical and sociological implications that they can actually have. Like that's the kind of conversation we all wish we could have with our friends, without it getting like ridiculous. Worst moment, I think I would probably just have to pick. Yeah, it's the cargo bay. I'm gonna do a comedy pratfall off the side of the thing. Like the idea that you couldn't find a single box, it was all just barrels all the way down.
There are regulation step ladders. Like it's a cargo bay. They're gonna have some sort of forklift or lifting device.
Well, yeah, we literally see the little 0G like lifty things. Like, come on, you're telling me you couldn't find one of those to stand on? It has to be a barrel so you can fall off it. Okay, whatever. That's my worst.
Okay. I'm gonna save auto for last. I think my best moment is it's hard to equate, but the best moment for me is just the point where you realize that Kamala is not just a character that is just like written for men. Like she is not just like she's just like everyone wants her, and she's just gonna be this two-dimensional just like character you find at a whorehouse in a Les Miserables play or something like that. She's actually got a will and a motivation of her own. I don't know if she does pass the is it the Bechdel test, the sort of like the women that can act without talking about men. I don't think she does, but
she does.
No, but I think she does have a little bit of a motivation to her. So I would probably say that my best moment is just the moment where the audience becomes self-aware of Kamala's own self-awareness. Worst moment is it's just the Ferengi, isn't it? Really, it's just like this is pre-DS9.
This is a function.
But there are other aliens you could have used with a less tacky way. The Ferengi were kind of, as we know, brought on TNG to be the villains, and turns out actually no, they're just just bumbling idiots. Trash. And it's not until DS9 actually turns them into funny bumbling idiots with good humorous storylines. So
the heart of gold that they would sell in a minute.
Yeah, auto.
Like they were hilarious. I don't care what anyone says. I got two worst for you, believe it or not. First of all, we got the Wall of Sound. Jay Chataway wrote 2 unique tracks totaling 4.5 minutes. For this episode, you're telling me you can't get some strings for this episode? Do better. The other worst, right at the beginning, the Ferengi shuttle, it blows out. There's a little explosion. And then Picard says, energize. They energize, and a fraction of a second later, it blows up. What were you going to do if they weren't quick on the transporter? Were you going to blow yourself up? For a chance at this woman? Come on. I know they're dumb. Oh, and then the transporter chief goes, got them, sir, with the worst language you've ever heard in your life. So that was not great.
Listen, O'Brien trains all of his staff to be emotionally dead inside because he knows what's going to happen to them.
Is that comic series still going? O'Brien at the transporter console, O'Brien's Day. Is that still going? I need to check that because that's brilliant.
I wonder.
Yeah, anyway, sorry. Also
direct reports must suffer too, yes.
My 53rd best moment of the episode is when Worf is, and I called it out when we were watching, Worf is escorting the two Ferengi to quarter. They're just being annoying as shit. And he looks at both of them, and then he shakes his head no, like, I could kill you right now. That's not worth it. And he ushers them into their quarters. And I just found that hilarious bit of, Michael Dorn really is good with the little behind-the-scenes chewing scenery type stuff. So
cute.
There you go.
I like that. I missed that. I have to rewatch now. 5 more times.
Yes, you do.
All right, let's bring it home.
I can show you my rating code.
Schiller rating 3.5. Associational rating norm -3. That's much too low a rating.
I'm just not accustomed to seeing an unsatisfactory rating on a member of my crew.
All right, Otto, this is your chance, your time to shine. What is the Schiller rating code for this episode? Oh, I like that rhyme. That's good.
Sorry, Dan, I'm pulling from your worst. Gentlemen, how many ingots more would you spend on this episode?
Nice. Like not an ingot more.
Oh, that's good. All right, Dan, you start us off.
All right. So I'm not going to beat around the bush. This is everything I want in sci-fi. It's everything I want in Star Trek. It's everything I want from a great performance. There's undeniable chemistry between Famke Jansson and Patrick Stewart, which fortunately we get a whole lot more of in other franchises. I have such an incredibly deeper inspiration and interpretation of this episode on rewatch, just being an adult now. And after, I guess in my TNG rewatches, I never really get all the way through. I kind of keep restarting and getting around seasons 3, 4. So I know, awful. I'm a fake fan, but I haven't gotten back to this episode. It's very late in season 5. Give me a break. But but yeah, it's just a really, really great call, Otto. And I cannot find a flaw with this episode to bring it any less than a 10 out of 10.
Wow.
Idle. You're not giving this a 10, so tell us, please.
I'm not going to give this a 10. I've comments of the Ferengi being the Ferengi, so that drops it a little bit for me. There could have been other ways they were a plot device just to kind of release her and then add some kind of desire, but also the miners in the 10 forward sort of added that perspective as well. It's still bugging me. It's on the tip of my conscience that, like, someone wrote Kamala to be this way. This is the perfect woman. She literally is, not just to Picard, not just to anyone that marries her, but the audience as well. She's the perfect woman. She's not just some sort of like bimbo going like, I'm being married off and look at me, I'm hot. It's just a case of like, she's also self-aware. She's intellectual. She will respond to the man's desires as well. And I'm again, like, I call back to the book that I read from the Three Body Problem author of, the person, the writer's self-insert, as it were, and I can't help but think as well as written as she is, as conflicted as she is, there is that part of me that just goes like, have you written the perfect woman? Which sounds, yeah, obviously they did. It's a TV show. They write every woman, but it doesn't necessarily feel a little bit more deliberate here. That being said, it is still scintillating television. This isn't about Kamala at all. Kamala is the plot device for Picard. This is the way to make him as a much more nuanced character that I kind of wish they had. Can
I butt in a second?
Go on.
I like how you take shots at how poorly she's written. Then you're like, but she doesn't really matter. Picard doesn't.
Yeah, but no, I can't. I don't know if I can say any different than that, but like it is. It's a reflection, isn't it? The best written characters are reflections of either real world issues or other characters in the scene, and she is a reflection of Picard's desires more than the audience's, as it were. And it is interesting to see our otherwise stalwart Captain Picard be broken down by such a trivial thing as desire, which is often equated as being beyond in modern humanity, and now he has succumbed to that, and he has indulged himself in that, willingly or not, probably unwillingly, to a point that even Beverly can't break him out of it, and he has to have these vulnerable moments. The best moments in TNG with Picard, and when I talk about Best of Both Worlds and Family, are where he is vulnerable. Even the episodes with Nella Darren is not quite on this scale, but they are Picard in various vulnerable situations where he isn't the strong commander, you know. And I've been doing a little rewatch of things in Star Trek Picard, and they always sort of are spouting him, you're the commander of the starship, and now you're being arrogant. And I keep thinking back to moments like this, where it's like, well, he's not being arrogant here, he is being vulnerable, and he's only showing it to a few select people. So this is outstanding for the Picard stuff, but it still bugs me on certain note. I'm going to give this an 8. I'm sorry, I'm rambling. I'm going to give this an 8.5. It's solid. It's really good.
8.5 what?
Oh, sorry, 8.5 ingots more than I would spend on this episode. I think that was the thing.
Just ingots more.
Just ingots more. 8.5. It's solid. It's good. I am troubled. It might even be my own self looking at what I would be writing this episode and what I would think of myself, but I don't know. So 8.5 stars.
So, I think that it's what's interesting about this episode is that Kamala is just a cipher, but how much someone is just a cipher for another character kind of boils down to what you think of that character, and like you say, what they become in the presence of that character. And I feel like it sort of like demeans her role in the episode to like as if she is less like. You're kind of falling into the trap that the episode wants you to hold a mirror to, which is it asks you, here's your perfect mate. What does that say about you? Do you have the self-control to look at something so alluring and recognize what it says about you, to say no for the greater good? If something is served up to you on a silver platter, how far can you let that go? How much can you bring yourself to step outside of your own desires and recognize the other person's agency? Do you have that strength of will? It's a very introspective episode that is told very subtly with a great amount of care, that has real-world implications that are, I think, extremely subtle, because they don't ever say the word like trafficking, like which would have been in the lexicon by this point.
Do they not? I think...
They don't use the word trafficking. They use the word. They specifically talk about it in terms of arranged marriage, and trafficking was in the lexicon by this point. So they talk about it more in terms of like historic precedent.
Riker says you're using the Enterprise to transport a sentient person as property.
It's adjacent, but they don't specifically use trafficking, which is a specific term. So, and like yes, the Ferengi stuff is a little bit over the top, but it serves a specific narrative purpose, and I really can't find it within myself to be angry about it. Especially because it's like, okay, it's a narrative function. It's done well. Like, I can think of so many instances where there are narrative functions that are done so much more clunkily and offensively, and this is not in any way offensive to me. Which is so often a problem with like Berman-era Trek or Roddenberry-era Trek, where it's like the idea. I don't think any of the writers that you credited were women. And yet this is still handled fairly deftly. And Beverly is a incredible voice of reason here. And we talked about would adding Troy to this episode have improved it, and we kind of went unilaterally no. I can think of ways in which she could have been if I was writing my dream Trek, but the way that TNG is in the 90s, it just wouldn't have happened.
What's wild is if Troy was in this,
pitched and used here.
If Troy was in this episode, there would be two empathetic characters. I feel that would have clashed too much, and they wouldn't. What would they have done?
Well, I feel like you could have used that to make a bit more of a commentary and ask yourself, like, answer the question of what am I when there's no one else in the room, or what happens if there's another empath in the room.
Yeah,
that would have been interesting. If you want to do another alternate rewrite the 5 minutes, integrate Troy in the episode to see what happens. But that's not the Trek we got. That's not the Trek that was in 1992 or 1991. And so I think I would have to pay 9.8 ingots more for this episode. I think this is superlative. It's a great character study for Picard. Everyone's acting game is on point. it really draws to me that Famke Jansson was completely wasted as Jean Grey in both the X-Men, in all three of the X-Men movies she's in. She does not get to display anything like the range that she gets to display in. Like, you compare her performance here with what she does in Goldeneye, and she is completely different. Like, Xenia could not be a more different character than Kamala. There's such an incredible range and depth and sincerity and warmth to her here.
Mutation.
Such a perspicacity. Such genuineness, and for the age that she is, and going all of her scenes are based, almost all of her scenes are with Patrick Stewart of all goddamn people. Like the amount that I would feel like intimidated, and she just bats 1,000. Like, there's this bit in like the commentary for Die Another Day where Rosamund Pike talks about that being one of her first acting jobs, and one of her first scenes she has to act up against Judi Dench, and how small that made her feel. Like imagine that, and then it's like with Patrick Stewart, like as a young female actress, he's like is one of your first credits. Like all the credit to her, she does incredibly well in this. So yeah, 9.8, but not an ingot more.
Auto.
All right. If someone wants my notes, they know where to find me. I would pay as many as Picard would, 10 ingots more. And I should have kept talking. Because
sorry, I just got distracted by something. Hang on, I've got to go sort. You keep talking. You wax. I've got to go sort something. Wait.
You wanted to go for like that subtle, perfectly like nuanced, like this is the mic
this
drop.
This fucker has ruined this entire watch along.
Scratch that. Redo.
It took effort to bring you here.
Something I didn't mention, but I think I mentioned it in the Discord somewhere. But I've been watching The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel, and it's another story very similar about a woman finding her power through a very indirect way. She finds her own voice and her own power through stand-up comedy, and it's about a woman who in the backstory is very reflective to the societal norms and to how all of her friendly friends and all the other women of the day are supposed to act in front of their parents, in front of their spouses, in front of their prospective spouses. And it's a very unique story, and there's a lot of parallels to this episode. So if anybody enjoys The Perfect Mate, I think they may also enjoy an episode or two of The Marvelous Mrs. Maisel. Just a shout out for that.
I just, I feel like... Sorry. Well, first of all, to pander to stars, Xenia is Kamala if she hung out with the miners in the intervening years.
Oh, do that trick you do with your thighs.
By the way, if you watch like Paramount Plus has more captions and we got, it says what the miners are seeing in the background, like, oh, hurt me, and like this is really bad writing. But what I wanted to say was Kamala is supposed to be this totally in command, in control character, all eyes on her, but she's a kid who's been sheltered her whole life, and so that just the little vulnerable moments, please don't leave. I don't like being alone. Oh, I'm being called off by my cats.
I just got the same thing. That was what I was going to see.
I appreciate that they give her as many those vulnerable moments, because she could just be the eye candy, and they give her so much more. So there you go. All right, what does that bring our average to?
Okay, so this is an average episode of 9.6. So this is in the top 10 for sure. Same as Latent Image. Same as, I was about to say, the Perfect Mate. We just watched that. Same as Under the Cloak of War. Not as good as The Magnificent Ferengi. Not as good as Night. But certainly better than Peak Performance, which is a 9.4 for us. Gentlemen, I have a question.
Yeah, the ultimate... By the way, all you guys hated on the Ferengi, they're there in The Magnificent Ferengi, they're there in Peak Performance.
Yes,
all of your favorite episodes have Ferengi in them.
Peak Performance? No, that's a...
Yes, they attack the house.
Oh, of course they do. They come in halfway through. Yes, they do. That's right. Yeah, sorry.
And of course, everybody's perennial favorite, The Last Outpost, too.
Sorry. Okay.
Absolutely. I also double-checked. The IMDb rating for this is 7.3. So.
Oh, well. What the fuck? Really?
Ouch.
No, I would give it much more.
That's garbage.
Yeah, well, I did give it
much more. All four of us need to go on and write reviews. All right, let's go.
Okay.
Let's bring it up.
Gentlemen, I have a final question for you. Who do you think asked...
No.
Yes. More questions in this episode Kamala or Picard? Who asked the most questions in this episode?
Picard.
Dan?
I think it was Beverly. Her one diatribe alone was all rhetorical questions, wasn't it?
This is like an after dinner being made out of feces. That's what this is.
No, Crusher only asked 4 questions. No, Kamala asked 29 questions in this episode. Picard asked 32 questions in this episode.
Hey, can I ask one? Why?
Who the fuck knows? It's a good question, but there will be more of this. All right. Thank you very much for watching, everyone that came. We will be back on Sunday with Overtired to watch To the Death from Deep Space Nine. You wait. I had to transcribe Section 31 today. I've been transcribing Star Trek Scouts for this project. Had to. It's become a passion now. I didn't even tell you about it.
I think Overtired mentioned in the chat, or maybe it was Booter's, like, we'll hear about in 6 months that you watch it to fall asleep.
Actually, not wrong. If my wife would let me, I would. Anyway, we'll be back on Sunday with To the Death. Come and join us then. To the Death. We'll see you then. Live long, prosper, and ta-ra.
It's all set.
What's all set?
I got Hooker lined up with a dude who's gonna give him the deal of a lifetime on a new Porsche.
A Porsche?
Mm-hmm.
Well, maybe you should wait. You might get a better deal through the state.
Yeah?
Yeah, we just did some story on a guy who's selling stolen Porsches off a lot on Main. Real sleazy character.
What's his name?
Delvin, Kelvin,
Melvin?
Alvin.